Catherine and Emily here from Isopia Wellbeing Service. I apologise for the very slight delay in the start to this. We were having a few technical issues, as we sometimes do, but we've got it all sorted now. So welcome to this live this morning. So as I said, my name is Catherine. I'm a wellbeing coach at Isopia Foundation, and with me as well, I've got Emily, who is also a wellbeing coach at Isopia. Now, some of you may know about Isopia, some of you may not. So Isopia is a mental health wellbeing service, and we try to give you the tools and the skills that you need to take back control of your life. This workshop this morning is a first. So we've never done a workshop on autism or neurodiversity before, and we might have done one on neurodiversity, but not specifically on autism. So I'm really looking forward today to sharing with you some information about autism. What I'd really love you guys to do is to share information with us as well. So to engage and to ask questions and just give us some of your own input, so your own experiences, whether you've got autism as a diagnosis, whether you've think you may have autism because you felt very different throughout your life. Whatever situation you're in, we would just love to hear from you this morning.
Even if you have loved ones with autism and how that impacts on you and things like that, that'll be really good as well.
Yeah. And it is sometimes actually only when we see other people around us that have a diagnosis for autism that we may, particularly as adults, that we may begin to think, do you know what? Those symptoms seem very similar to what I'm going through as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about my own experience over the next half hour as well. What I would like to say to you, though, is that this is a public platform. We would love you, like we say, to share your experiences with us. But please remember that this is public, so your comments will be able to be seen by all people. Okay, so just bear that in mind, but don't let it stop you too much engaging with us.
Just try and be positive about it. This is a positive environment. This is supposed to be about something that we're going to share awareness, because it's on Saturday. It's Autism Acceptance Day.
Yeah.
So talking about autism in a positive light, and of course, talking about some of the not so positive symptoms, but trying to spin it into something that can be understood for more people.
Yeah, and for you to also gain some ideas perhaps and this is where I want more input from you, because there's so many people who struggle with the symptoms of autism every day, and you may have some strategies that you've already used throughout your life that are really helpful to you, that maybe other people could share that information and make their lives a little bit more manageable. Because I think with autism, we all know autism is a lifelong condition. It's not something that you can be cured from. So no one is ever going to be cured from autism, but we can learn how to live our lives day to day, even if some of the things that happen to you in your daily life are quite significant. I think we can still manage to lead fulfilling lives and actually celebrate some of the signs and symptoms that maybe we share that actually are really useful for other people as well. So it'd be really, really good to hear, like I said, as much from you. And April has said already about Saturday being, so the 2nd of April is World Autism Acceptance Day. Now, the whole of this week, from the 28th of March to the 3rd of April, is World Autism Acceptance Week. Now, I'm making a big thing about this word acceptance, because for years and years and years, it has been
so stigmatized.
Yes, stigmatized. And it was all about awareness, because people didn't really understand what autism was. So for years and years, it's been called World Autism Awareness day and week. And that change this year is quite significant, because I think they realise that, you know, a lot of people with autism not now something that we don't know very much about. Most people probably know somebody in their family who's got autism, and therefore we've moved on. What we now need to do is to make sure that people are able to think about how they can support other people who have autism, and accepting that they have autism, and how we can help to get them to lead really good, purposeful lives, which is, you know, our motto here at Isopia. So I was going to start with a little definition. So do a little bit of definition of what autism is, because I think when you hear a definition and you think, yeah, that's okay, but it's not. It doesn't always. The science sometimes doesn't make it so clinical. It's more clinical as an approach. So autism is a neurodevelopmental condition of varying severity, and I think that we can see about the varying severity because people are on a spectrum of autism. Spectrum. So you don't necessarily have one symptom and everyone shares that symptom. It's across this whole spectrum, and it's very, very different for different people. So a variable severity with lifelong effects that can be recognised from early childhood. And it's chiefly characterised by difficulties with social interaction, which I think we'll probably all understand, and communication, and by restricted or repetitive patterns of thoughts and behaviour. And I think actually, as a definition goes, that does pick up a lot of the basic things that we know about autism. Okay, just like to say hello to Andrew. Hope you're doing okay. You say you're doing all right, so good to hear from you. I know I've spoken to you before when I was a member here at Isopia, and it's really nice to see you here on the live this morning. So if you've got anything you want to share, Andrew, feel free. No problem with that at all. Okay, so autism is a lifelong disability. And I think if you're autistic, the concept of a cure can sometimes be a little bit offensive to you, because you can't go to the doctors and say, I've got autism, what are you going to prescribe me? Because there's so many symptoms around it as well.
I think as well, the fact that it's a neurodivergent thing, I think having a cure means that because you're neurodivergent, it means you're not normal and you're not what society accepts in life. So I think it comes to accepting that actually this is just the way that my brain is wired, and how am I going to navigate an already really complicated world with a brain that's thought processes work differently, and that actually can be a really useful thing. Like there are a lot of people with autism who come up with amazing ideas because their brain thinks of things differently, which is great.
Inventions, a lot of inventions have been done by autistic people. And it is part of that sign of autism, where you just become focused on specific tasks, you know, certain things. That's what you focus on. You actually become experts in those areas. So, you know, people with autism can lead very normal, very successful actually lives, and I think that's really important to hold on to if you have a diagnosis for autism. So I was just wondering if people out there, if they have diagnosed autism, or you may think that perhaps you might suffer from some of the symptoms of autism. So just really a little bit of feedback would be nice on that, just to see what your particular area is. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the signs of autism. I know before it talked about childhood in the definition. Some people may get diagnosed with autism as a child. And there is now, and I was really pleased to see this week, there's been a lot of public government money put into helping children with learning difficulties. And one of those is giving children with autism who are having to wait 5 years on a waiting list to get support for autism, that now has gone. They're going to do early intervention for children, which is fantastic. But for a lot of people, autism isn't diagnosed as a child. I'll talk a little bit about my past and my history. I don't actually have a diagnosis of autism. I'm waiting. I've been on the waiting list for 8 months. I've been through the first stages and I've been referred, and I'm now just waiting for that assessment. In my head, I know I have autistic traits, just because, we all have got traits of autism. Who likes to have the same cup every day for their cup of tea? It's just little things like that we all show a little bit, and we're all a little bit on that spectrum of autism. But it's not always found in childhood. So for me, I'll let you know that I was first referred at 50. So I've gone through my entire life knowing that I was different. There's certain things in my life that I know that I cannot do, which if we get time, I'll talk more about. And it's those, getting diagnosed later on. It's not all about, for me, the diagnosis means that I know now fully. It's a validation of what's going on for me and my experiences. But, it's not a need for me to have a diagnosis of autism, but it's just I just thought might as well, because it will help me with understanding a little bit more about myself. So some of those signs of autism that we've got, things like finding it really hard to understand what other people are feeling or thinking. So you can't really read people's body language.
Yeah, like people find it difficult to read the room and might make inappropriate comments, or might make might come in and not read that the room's a bit sad, and then not be able to accustom themselves to that, I think. Is that fair? I think as well it can be quite difficult to read between the lines of what someone's saying, and when what they're saying, you take matter of fact, you take exactly the words that they're saying, and you don't necessarily think to yourself, oh, maybe they didn't mean that, maybe they meant something else, but they just worded it wrong.
Yeah, I know a lot of people struggle with just the basic things like, break a leg going on the stage. It just doesn't mean to an autistic person, it means break a leg. They don't understand. I wouldn't understand that concept either. That's difficult for me. But one of the big signs and symptoms is to do with your social interactions. This has plagued my entire life. Absolutely plagued my entire life. I do not want to be in the company of other people. I don't want to go out to a situation that I'm not aware of before.
Meeting new people.
Oh, that is just like the worst case scenario in a new place. Can't manage to do that at all. So social situations I've always avoided. The easiest option is avoidance. And I think, a lot of people with autism or those traits, they find comfort in their own company.
The routine.
And what they're doing. Routine-based is just another one of those signs. I am terrible if anything changes. So, for example, I'll just give you a little example. I started working here at Isopia probably about 4 months ago, maybe 5 months now. And we had a little bit of a desk change around upstairs. And I could see my desk moving, and I had to leave. the room. I couldn't. I was almost hyperventilating. I had to leave the room. I had to calm down, and people had to tell me what they were doing with the tables and chairs. And it was actually for my benefit, because I didn't like people. I was too close to the door, and that's another thing. If you struggle a little bit with autism, I didn't want people coming in behind me, because it just put me on edge the whole time I was at work. So actually they were doing me a benefit, but the change was just too much for me to bear. But a little bit now, I'm able to overcome some of those things, after time.
Just rationalise yourself and actually work through it, I think.
And give yourself a little bit of a time out, just go away, just get it sorted in your head if those things happen to you, and just give yourself some space to understand what's going on from your point of view, which is just so different to other. They thought they were doing me a favour. I saw it. What are you doing? You're moving me out of the room. Where am I going? It is scary. It is really, really scary. And as you said, so routine is really important to people who are autistic.
So eating the same thing, like you said, drinking out of the same mug.
Going to bed at the same time every night. I mean, another little thing. I've been going to bed at 9 o'clock in the evening since maybe 10 years or so. And I can't vary that, because if I vary it even by 5 minutes, I'd be up all night, because my routine's smashed. Now I know I need to work on that, because I need to put some flexibility in it. What happens when we go away? It's not fair to make people go to bed at 9 o'clock. So it is about working on those things, and just seeing them for what they are. Another thing that I get, I don't know if anyone else, I'd love to know if anyone else thought it was experience of something like this. So whenever I go somewhere, and if I'm going to be catching a ferry or a train or anything like that, I am almost sick if there's a chance we're not going to catch it, to the point that I physically need to be sick, because it is such an extreme emotion, and that to me has been the biggest thing for me. But I'd love to hear some of your signs as well. So
I think as well, for me, thinking back, I think all my life, it's really weird. No matter what bus I get on, I have to sit in the same spot. Like every single bus, whether it's a Southern Vectors bus, whether it's a London bus in Southampton, I have to sit in the exact same spot. And I don't know what it is about that spot. I think it's just more like the most comfortable. And if I don't sit in that spot and someone else is sat in that spot, I'm like, oh no, where am I going to sit?
It's your spot. It's your spot, and anywhere else feels weird. So as well, just be aware, because it's sensory. So you may become overwhelmed by certain sounds. So it could be a minor little sound that's going on in a room while you're listening to people talking, or you're doing clock ticking, and it becomes unbearable. It could be a dog barking in a garden, and it's just keeping on, going on and on and on, and you become fixated on that. I know that I do. And then
taps the worst.
And those little things again, just find. And another thing, actually, you probably struggle to make eye contact with people. I actually don't struggle with this, and I would be so interested if there's any women out there who could talk about this a little bit. You see, I feel that I put on a mask. I have my non-autistic personal face on, and I put that on when I go to work, and I can make eye contact with people because I'm making myself make eye contact with people. I know what they want to see from me. So, and actually women, it's really harder to diagnose an autistic woman than an autistic man, because quite often they will put a mask on. They will make a front. So it's much later on in their life. Usually there's not as many girls diagnosed as boys, so they tend to just live with it.
I really struggle with eye contact because, and I don't know what it is about eye contact, but it makes me like cringe. It makes like I can give someone eye contact. I've got to a place where I can look someone in the eye, but constantly while I'm doing it, I'm like, give them eye contact, and that's all I can concentrate on. Almost like it's an expectation, and I'm really uncomfortable. And even with my mum, she'll be like, "Why aren't you looking at me in my eyes?" And I'm like, "I just don't want to. Like, I'm just uncomfortable." And it's really can be quite distressing when someone's like really giving you eye contact as well, and they're not. They're really like looking into your soul, and you're like, what are they looking at? And then you start to get anxious, and then you start to get paranoid, and then your thoughts go all over the place. And then for me personally, I start to get overstimulated, like get too hot or itchy, or I can hear everything, and it's bizarre.
And sometimes it's nice when that happens to then give yourself what I call that timeout. Recharge, I call it sometimes, my batteries. So if I'm at work, like Emily said, overstimulation that's going on all day in your brain, and you're having to deal with that. So when I go home, I give myself at least half an hour away from anything else, just to allow myself to process really what's gone on in the daytime.
I just want to note Kirsty's post. I'm really relating to another of this stuff being said. Eye contact, miserably struggle with connections and understanding people. I struggle to read people's emotions behind the words. I think when you have a diagnosis of ADHD, it can be really common to also be on the spectrum for autism, just because it's that neurodivergent pathway that you're going down. And there can be overlap.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of what you're saying there, struggle with connections, struggle to read people's emotions behind the words, which is what we were talking about. Some of those are symptoms, signs of autism as well. So like Emily says, quite often people who with ADHD do share a dual diagnosis. So that's something that could be there for you, Kirsty. But nice to see you that you've still, even though we're not talking so much about ADHD, you've still persevered, and thank you for doing that.
And Joanne, with my daughter, says, "Okay, had enough of socializing now." It can be like within my generation, it's kind of like my social batteries run down, and people who are on the spectrum of autism, their battery's lower, their battery runs out quicker because. Not because they're not social, but it's harder. It's hard work to be in a social place. It's hard work to navigate through that overstimulation, that anxiety,
overload,
the feeling of having to kind of meet everyone's expectations of you. It's not just as easy as just going and chilling with your friends. There's more to it.
No. And actually, when we talk a little bit in a moment about tips and for living with it, we're going to talk a little bit about your friends and social situations and so on. Okay, so really quickly, I just wanted to go over some of the what causes autism. Some of you may know this already, some of you may not know. There's so many different ways that autism, however, can, appear in you. Now, obviously, there's the genetics one. Quite often, people have relatives who have autism. I know that 6 months after I got got put forward for autism, my daughter, who's 22, has also now been put forward for autism, and I can see it in her. So it could be genetic. You're possibly more likely to develop those symptoms of ASD. Your environment. So factors, believe it or not, things like air pollution can lead to it. Low birth weight can lead to it. But it generally is in a child that would be more susceptible to being autistic anyway, that they would work. And then there's other biological factors. So it could be your immune system, your metabolism, or the brain development may be slightly different. And I actually, that is something that is for autism, the brain is wired differently. So we do need to expect that we are going to show different. Our lives are going to be slightly run differently than other people. Yeah. So last thing I want to talk about really is living with autism. So living with autism is one of those, if you're autistic, you're autistic. All your life you're going to be autistic. Okay, you're never going to be able to change that, but what you can do is do some things that are more beneficial and more helpful in helping you to actually get through the days. So the first thing that I would say is improve your communication and your relationship skills with other people.
Being open about your diagnosis and letting people understand that actually things are harder for you.
Yeah.
And then hopefully that will come with more patience.
Yeah.
And more awareness and understanding of you as a person.
Yeah.
And then that in turn helps you to breed a space where you can communicate in your way that works for you, and that will improve your relationships at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I think actually sometimes it's quite nice as well to reach out to if you know anyone else who's got ASD, it's good to reach out to those people because they get you a little bit more than other people who perhaps don't get you. So support groups and things like that. I know we're doing a forum next week, and I think it's on Thursday, Thursday or Friday. We will put it out on our website, okay? And that's specifically for autism, people with autism. So that's another little thing. We are really, really pleased that we're actually now highlighting autism. It's such an issue that's had so much stigma around it for so long, but I think we need to highlight the fact that actually autistic people can function in life. They can make a success of themselves. They can have friends. They might not find it very comfortable all of the time, but I think, like Emily was saying, if you know someone really well, you could let them know perhaps of your diagnosis so that they can help and look out for you a little bit more. It could be something, for example, if you know that you get triggered by certain things, so it could be a noise like we talked about before, it's making sure that perhaps you can move yourself from that trigger. If you know that's going to affect you, move yourself. So if it's a barking dog outside, move to another room, close your window. If it's a noise in a particular room, go somewhere else. Loud traffic, again, close your windows and move to the back of the house. These are all little tips that just might help keep you regulated and on an even keel. So because people with autism generally have sometimes a diagnosis, more likely to have a diagnosis of anxiety and depression that comes along with their autism. So we need to look at some of the things that you would do to help people, to help yourself if you suffer from anxiety or depression. So it could be that you might do some exercise. That might help you. Especially, I know sometimes when I get really frustrated, I love a walk with my dogs because I can get those frustrations out, and I can also give myself half an hour to an hour to actually think through what's gone on and just, we talked about the recharge, the battery recharge.
I found when I was really stressed and I was going through my exams and I was getting really overstimulated by all of these different noises, I found that getting myself some noise cancelling headphones and just going for a walk and blocking out all of the other things and just putting what I wanted to listen to in my ears meant I could calm down.
Yeah.
And that was really good.
Yeah. Good. So that's a really good idea. And also, if you do have friends, I know it's difficult sometimes to make friends in the first place if you're autistic, but if you do have friends, try relying on those really close friends, the ones that, and family members as well, the ones that know you and love you the best, and always will have your best interests at heart.
Yeah.
So try and maybe, if you want, because socializing is such a good thing to do, but obviously when you're autistic, socializing is one of the most frightening things to do as well. But I think if it's your close friends,
it needs to be, you need to prioritize the people that are easiest to be around. And I think like what Kirsty and Lucy were saying, trying to not be too hard on yourself if it's too much one day. Trying to, if you feel like your child is going to miss out because of you, they won't be. They won't even notice. They'll just be bubbling along in life. Just they probably love hanging out with you. And just try and keep it in your head that this isn't anything that I'm doing purposely or maliciously. This is just what I'm doing to get through the day. And
your kid, your child, that they will love you whatever. And I can say the same. Because I found it really difficult to connect even with my children. But I've had this conversation with them, because I used to work very hard. As part of my autism, I used to work 14-hour days every day. And that was just, it was ongoing. And I just didn't get to see my kids at all, really. But on speaking with them afterwards, when they're a little bit older, they didn't hold that against me at all. They were absolutely proud of me for what I was doing in my life. And to hear that from your children is one of the greatest things I've ever
And if your
experienced.
children are old enough, it's about communicating that with you, saying, I'm really sorry that we don't go out as much as other families, but I just really struggle. And they'll respect you more than that. But and I think in terms of what Joanne said, I think you can sometimes, what I did at school was I contacted my head of year and I'd said, I really struggle sometimes in the classroom. I get really overwhelmed. And it was then put in place that I could leave whenever I wanted and whenever I needed to, and go sit in a quiet room just to like decompress and just process everything. Or if I was too anxious to go into the classroom, then I was allowed to just do the work that they were going to do in the classroom on my own. I was like 16, 17, 18, so might be a little bit different if she's a little bit younger. But I mean, just reaching out to the school about it.
And it's fine that, I mean, I've literally been a teacher for 30 years before I started here, and I know how much effort we put in to make sure children with autism or ADHD are able to get what they need in the classroom. But it is fine as a parent to ring up and to let them know, even if they, if they know already. But if they don't, ring them, and they will be more than happy to accommodate your daughter or your son. I don't know who it is, sorry. So there will be more. I'm more than happy to do it as well, because they want that child to benefit as much as possible. And if they're going to be anxious, it could lead to school refusal and things like that. So they will go out of their way to do that, okay, to look after the children. And I 100% know that. So feel free to contact your school if you haven't done so already, because they're more than happy to help you there. Just going to say hi to, who was it? Sarah Dawes. I just saw Sarah Dawes pop up. So hello to Sarah and to Emily. She didn't know your name. So hello. Okay, so just a couple more things. We're coming towards the end, but just a couple more things that you could do to help yourself, like the music, the headphones. I saw someone write that up beside it. I think that is brilliant. That is what I do all the time when I'm at home and I want to zone out of everything else that's going on. I love music. I love my music, and I'll listen to it time and time and time and time again. But it gives me that space away from what's going on, the stresses. Yeah, it is. So just a couple of things. Now we one thing that we really need to focus on is sleep, because people with autism tend to struggle with insomnia an awful lot. Now this could be to do with anxiety about what's coming up. It could be to do with your head is not allowing you to go to sleep, but it's very difficult for people with ASD. So you do need to try, as you would with other things, and we've talked about this before, developing a good sleep hygiene. Not necessarily being as inflexible as I was on the time of bed that I can go to. You do need a good routine, but there needs to be some ability to move it slightly, okay? But yeah, so people, and you were telling me something this morning about serotonin, wasn't it? Melatonin, yeah. That's it.
So people with ASD produce less melatonin. So that's the key hormone or neurotransmitter that helps you sleep. So that's why a lot of people suffer with insomnia. But you can take over-the-counter melatonin, and you can get it prescribed by a doctor if it's really, really bad. And yeah, just developing those techniques that help us produce serotonin. So doing relaxing things like having a bath, having a hot drink, all of those things that all of mental health professionals preach to you. We do it for a reason. It does work.
It does, yeah.
You read a book, you turn off the lights,
and the telly.
You can kick your circadian rhythm into action, and that's what helps you sleep.
And just one other thing that I'd like to say about, because what people with autism tend to do is we tend to get fixated on certain objects, certain actions that we do each day, and we make sure we do those brilliantly. Okay, they are 100% perfect. But what tends to happen is we then forget the other things in our life. So you focus on those few things that you've got to do and you've got to do well, but then other things. So you might become a little bit disorganized in some of your other daily activities. Now, you could help yourself there with something like a planner, a day planner.
To-do list.
Yeah, to-do list, just to make sure that you know that you are doing everything rather than just focusing on those
the one
or two things that you want to do. Yes, you're right, Emily. Okay, so what I'd like to do, I mean, hopefully that's been of use to you. Like I say, we will put out when this forum is next week for ASD, for autism, whatever type, diagnosis, someone put Asperger's, whatever it is. I think it's come along. I think it's at HQ. So I'll get someone to put that out on the Facebook page, just so that people are aware of that and when it's happening. Now, if you need any immediate help or support, please be aware that if you're a member of Iseropia, you can give us a call. And if you're not a member of Iseropia, there are helplines. Obviously, there's 111. On the island, we've got the crisis line. But just be aware, if you do want to talk to somebody, there are people around who can talk to you. Now, we have our live next week is on
stress management.
Yeah, stress management, the live next week, but I can't tell you who'll be doing that, but it will be on stress management, which is a very important topic. If you want to find out any more about us, then please visit our website or Facebook page, and you can find some more information about that. And like I say, we'll make sure that autism forum is on there as well, so you know when that is. Okay? So really good to speak to you this morning, and hope to see you again soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.